Hi there, welcome into The Talent here on BCTV. I'm Thomas Greenberg, joined by my co-host Scott Hill, and we're here to get you caught up on all things Boston sports that have happened in the past week. The first big matchup of the weekend was Boston College Clemson, and for us here on campus at Boston College, it wasn't a fun day for us. So Clemson came in, and we didn't think there was too much of a chance that BC was going to get the upset, but we thought they'd at least maybe keep it a close game. But the result was 56-10 Clemson. I mean, they came in here and just shellacked us. It was over before it really even started with their high-powered offense. What do you think about that matchup, and what do you think about Boston College offense and defense heading into the rest of the season?
Well, Thomas, I think BC was, it was a tough matchup from the get-go. Clemson's one of the best teams in the nation, and there's definitely a talent gap between our two squads. But that said, I expected a better game than we saw. It was a beautiful night out. It was red bandana night nonetheless. We do have good players. It was at home. It was a sellout officially. I know most of those fans were probably Clemson fans, but it was a sellout, and I thought with the atmosphere and the significance of the night that we would give Clemson at least a bit of a fight, and it was unfortunate that we failed to do that. And so I think the team's mentality has to be a little desperate going into the bye week. How about you?
Yeah, you know what? The fun part about it was that 44,000 people attended the game. I mean, after we saw, 22,000 against Wagner, and we saw some low attendance ratings this season for the Eagles. It was nice to see the stadium filled, Alumni Stadium. But I mean, BC's defense is what could have kept us in the game, and they just couldn't do anything about Deshaun Watson. He was throwing it down the field. Michael Thomas, I think, had that highlight catch for Clemson, and it really just was, it was a bad game overall for BC. Now, what do you think about BC? So they have the bye week this week, of course, but then they play Syracuse next week at home again at Alumni Stadium. Do you think the outlook is bleak after that Clemson game, or do you think there's a real chance for Boston College to turn it around in the ACC this season and possibly make a bowl game?
Well, Thomas, I mean, the schedule is so favorable. I think that they definitely have a shot to turn it around and make a bowl game. But it's going to be tough. Syracuse and Connecticut are the only games that BC is currently favored to win in its remaining schedule. But Syracuse is really bad, so I think BC can pull this off. It's just going to take a little more discipline on defense. Actually, the defense has given up a lot of big plays recently, and that needs to stop. And then I think offensively, the Eagles need to pass for over 200 yards, which they've only managed to do against Buffalo. And against Clemson, they didn't even manage 100 yards.
Right, we thought Patrick Tolles was going to be that savior coming in, and he really hasn't performed up to expectations. Maybe the expectations were too high, but for an SEC quarterback coming in, we did expect more. Maybe next week against Syracuse will be the perfect week to turn it around. The other Boston football team isn't having very many struggles so far this season. The Patriots got Tom Brady, their star quarterback, back this weekend, and I mean, they beat the Browns just as we thought they would. They have a big matchup this weekend against the Cincinnati Bengals at 1 o'clock on Sunday. What do you think about that matchup, both from a Patriots perspective and from the Bengals perspective?
Well, the Patriots are right where they want to be, sitting at 4-1, and with Tom Brady back at full strength and playing as well as ever, 400 yards in his first outing back. Whereas the Bengals are a dangerous team, to be sure. They've been in the playoffs the past 4 or 5 years, and they're, they've reasonably well coached, very talented. Andy Dalton is a steady hand at quarterback. They're definitely a difficult team to face during the regular season. Easy come January, but difficult right now. So, and I think with the desperation level the Bengals have, the Patriots need to be cautious, but they're very clearly the better team in this matchup, and I think they will get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bengals have definitely been a disappointment this season. That's usually, like you said, the regular season where they excel. So maybe it'll be the other way around this year. Bengals will finally win a playoff game. I don't foresee that happening with the way the Bengals are playing right now. They have a lot of good skill players on defense with Vontaze Burfict, Pac-Man Jones, and then on offense with A.J. Green, but they can be streaky. And I think this weekend will be one of those games where the Patriots, maybe Vegas and some analysts will think it's a close game going into it, but I think it's one of those games for the Patriots to announce, okay, we're the best team in the NFL, or at least in the AFC, and Tom Brady truly is back to lead the Patriots to that 6th Super Bowl victory. So, I mean, that'll be definitely a big matchup heading into this weekend. There's a few other NFL games going on, but that's the big one because it's not a huge weekend for the NFL in terms of good matchups. So Patriots-Bengals will be definitely one that we're looking forward to. The other Boston team suffered a sad defeat on Tuesday night at the hands of the Cleveland Indians. They got swept 3-0. It wasn't a great day to be a Boston Red Sox sports fan. Why do you think it happened?
Well, Thomas, the offense that was so prolific during the regular season failed to show up in this short 3-game series. So it was, from that point, disappointing. And the pitching let them down, too. Rick Porcello, who's been so solid throughout this entire season, had a bad game 1. And then David Price only lasted, 3.5 innings in the 2nd game. And then, Buchholz tried valiantly in the 3rd game. But still, there's ultimately it was their bats. And you can't blame it all on Travis Shaw for striking out last. I mean, it was all of them. Even Big Papi didn't play that well in the series. So, that was strange to see a team that, performed so well offensively during the season fall short in that area when it mattered most.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. It was very interesting to see that the Red Sox offense just couldn't keep it going. But what I found interesting about that was that in 2013, the Red Sox offense really didn't perform that well. Xander Bogaerts, I think, was their best hitter with a 300 batting average, and then Big Papi, of course, got hot in the World Series, ending up going, I think, 11 of 16 and winning World Series MVP. But the reason that they made it to the World Series and ended up winning was because of the pitching that year. They had John Lester, John Lackey, who carried that team, and this year they were expecting that and hoping for that out of David Price and Rick Porcello. But they just couldn't deliver. And I think when you pay David Price $217 million, a lot of people were critical at the beginning because they said, okay, maybe we'll get 3 good years of really good pitching in the regular season. But what will happen come playoff time? And unfortunately for Red Sox fans, that was answered this year when David Price put up a really, he didn't pitch like 10 earned runs, but I think he ended up with 5 earned runs in his 1 start. And it was a big contributor to the loss in the series. So it was a sad thing to see the Red Sox season end so abruptly in a sweep to the Terry Francona, of all people, and the Indians. But for now, we'll look to see if those Indians can make it to the World Series and if the Cubs can, because that's another chance for Theo Epstein to break an 108-year curse of that Chicago Cubs baseball team. So that'll be very interesting and very exciting to see in the rest of the MLB playoffs. So thank you for joining me here tonight, Scott. I think we got to some really good NFL talk. And go Eagles, and enjoy the weekend of sports.